Hey everybody, Mike back at you. Welcome to a very, very special edition of 5 Minute Gaming, and I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there right now. This show is gonna be way longer than 5 minutes because we are making history. I have a guest in a way I've never had before. So, you are more than welcome to watch this show in 5-minute increments, or just watch the whole thing, however you wanna do. But this is special, and I wanna take my time with this awesome guest I have here. Now, before I introduce this guest, this show is about pinball, and David Thiel, who is my very good friend, is a pinball music and sound designer, and he's done video games. He has a long, illustrious career doing arcade and pinball sound, and this is what I'm hoping, David, will be a long collaboration where we can do many of the great games you have composed and created sound effects for, as well as arcade and pinball both. So welcome, and it's just a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here in this virtual space.
I was trying to think of something we could do first, and you have told me in the past that Time Machine is a game that has always been near and dear to you. Am I correct on that? Absolutely.
This was, I think, the fourth one that we did for Data East. And by that time, I was the programmer as well, and I designed the soundboard. And so with each game, I would add some more features and some more interactive sound things. And so by the time I get to Time Machine, I've got a lot of stuff in there, and I know how to use it. And it was a fun theme. Back in the day, licenses really hadn't caught on much yet. So these companies always leveraged some cultural meme. So we know what the cultural meme was back in 1986, 87. This is sort of loosely referring to.
Was this, remind me of the year this game was put out?
I think it's 87.
Okay, so it was after the movie Back to the Future.
Yes.
So yes. Was this made because of the Back to the Future? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Prior to this, the first game was Laser War, and it really was going to be a license on the places that had the laser gun things. Mm-hmm. You used to go and strap on a chest thing, and shoot. But that fell through, so it became Laser War.
Right.
Secret Service, you look at that back glass, that's clearly a James Bond thing with no James Bond. Right. Torpedo Alley was truly an original thing, more like a Williams just come up with some theme and riff on it. Time Machine, yeah, kind of, it's very far away from Back to the Future, except that you travel backwards in time.
I'm going to start playing in a second, and I'll just play and we'll talk about the sounds we hear, and I want to hear all your stories about the music. But first of all, I'm a story guy. I like to remember the time of the 80s, back when this was being made. Can you take yourself back to the day you heard about this theme and they said, did they come into your office and say, okay, David, we're gonna do this Time Machine thing. Yeah, it's Back to the Future, so we need you to come up with some music and sounds. Is that how it starts? And then you have to start thinking, okay, I'm gonna figure out what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, each project's like a snowflake. Everyone's different, and then I hear about this, and then when you do sounds for interaction, I really work off the rules. So I really want to understand what the events are and how we're going to progress and what the modes might be, and so. The notion, nothing really comes to you except the first big idea. We start now, and we're going to go back by decades. You can see it on the inserts, 1980, 70, 60, 50. So now I know there are four major sort of sub modes, and I can begin thinking about that. And then it's sort of obvious, you know, you're going to make some music that is evocative of the 70s and 60s and 50s. And so I can begin thinking about that. But I don't remember, you know, the day that, and see, we were 20 miles away from where the pinball machines were being met. We, meaning Incredible Technologies, took this work on as contract work when Data East decided to become a pinball company. And they were going to adapt or knock off the Williams System 11 board, which is perfectly legal. You can do that. And the boards were designed in Japan by Data East engineers. They were a video game company. You can do that, but then you need software to run that operating system. And that is copyrighted big time. And Williams, the pinball industry, not just Williams, but they've always been a tad litigious. And, you know, no, we invented the pop bumper. Okay, so now we have a device, we'll call it the jet bumper. And so they've always had a history of defending their intellectual property. So
I think a good case in point to that is every time I play a Data East game and it says Tri-Ball, I always think about that because apparently, I guess it was Williams, right? They tried to patent the word multi-ball, correct?
Yes. Trademark it, whatever legal protection they could have. Yeah, they were always defending their turf big time. So they found us. We were a beginning company. I mean, when we talked to Gary Stern, we were still working out of our houses. And the Data East contract was a big contract, and that helped us take 10,000 square feet and establish offices. We grew. At that time, I think there were like seven or eight of us. We eventually grew to 75. But this was our first, you know, Laser War was the first big project, and we had to start from absolute scratch and reverse engineer everything, basically from a schematic. Mm-hmm. You couldn't look at any documentation from Williams or anything that would pollute the total white room cleanliness of this code. The soundboard was better for me because they knew they wanted a soundboard, but they weren't trying to copy the Williams soundboard necessarily. But we ended up using similar parts. So I got to architect that soundboard, put better amplifiers, configure it in stereo, which Williams never did, and then we had to create everything. The operating systems. I created an operating system and a synthesizer controller and a sequencer and everything required, because these machines made all the sound at runtime, which is very different than what we know now. I mean, what we know now started with the Williams DCS system in about 1995 or whatever year that was. But prior to that, all the sound created by the pinball machine was being done at runtime. Because ROM, your storage was expensive.
Yeah, no hard drives, no SSDs, no USB sticks, right.
I have to think about it. You know, there probably was, I don't know, maybe 8K of storage for the programs, and then maybe 16K or 32K of storage for the the WAV files that you hear voice in this and it's compressed. And Time Machine really was I think the first machine that had integrated singing with the rolls.
Well, I know we'll hear they say back to the 60s, and I wanted to ask you if you basically recruited the singers and recorded them singing and did all that.
I wrote the jingles. I mean, they're really, really short, and I wrote the jingles. And then back in that day, it still may be true, that kind of stuff for radio stations, because this was the model for this game. The metaphor for this game was kind of like a radio station. And if you go back to the big AM 30,000 watt radio stations, they used to have lots of stingers, WLS, and they have all these singing things in massive harmony. Those were done in Texas, I think in Austin. There was a production house that specialized in making those, and the people that took my stuff and sent it down there and paid for it, and I got a reel-to-reel tape back with these stingers on it, and then I took and compressed them and got them in the game.
So you weren't able to direct the talent.
Never met the singers. I don't know how many there were, who they were. This is like a production house thing where you could get customized singing, harmony-based, excited stingers. You could just give them what you needed, give them the melody, give them the words, and they would give you the results. It was pretty cool.
All right, well, I am ready to start playing the game, and the very first sound here is the sound of me putting a quarter in, and that is this. Now, I couldn't tell what they said. What did they say?
I think they sing stereo.
Stereo. Oh, stereo. Yeah, it's cut off a little bit, but and this is a stereo game, right? Which is awesome. Yeah. And we are recording this in stereo. So we'll be able to hear the full extent of the left and rights, which is a big deal to me as it is to you. All right, I'm going to start a game. And ball missing. Okay. Oh, I see there's a ball in the shooter lane. Ah! It was behaving true to form. There was a ball in the shooter lane, so it was giving me the ball missing error. That's really funny. All right, so here we go. So, David, I never got to play this game back in the day. I don't remember seeing it anywhere, so I don't have any memories, which means I don't know the rules. Would you care to tell me what I should be doing?
Well, it's been a very long time since I've played it. You're basically trying to qualify each decade. And so I'm guessing that the stand-ups on the left and right side have to be done.
Okay. The one thing I learned, I did play this the other day, and I learned that if you hit that ramp, the ramp on the left that has the 70s, 60s, and 50s, that's what locks a ball.
Right.
Which helps you get towards a multi-ball, which I never reached. And right now I'm losing my ball a lot. And I always say this on my show, these games were designed to take money and be quick. And that is exactly what is going on here. And that was a really quick game, but thankfully I can just keep playing. I don't have to keep spending quarters. Alright, let's try again. So while I'm playing, is there another story you can share just about your memories of working on this game?
More pinball, shoot again. One of the things is when we went into the 70s, I figured out how to make the Pac-Man sound. I mean, that's not a sample of it. I figured out with FM how to make it. And then when you go into the 70s, I play that, but that's wrong, right? I mean, it really is sort of on the cusp, really sort of an 80s sound, very early 80s.
Right.
Well, technically, that's not right, but it's a good cue. It's a very evocative cue of very early, video games. So I stuck at the 70s, and people can give me grief about it. So we have to get to the 70s, Mike.
I am trying. I keep losing my ball, and
which is the essence of pinball. Yeah,
I know it's and of course I want to try to hit that ramp, so I'm trying to get my ball to the right flipper, which there I've got it, and there we go. Alright. Oh, it didn't lock. I must have not done something.
It doesn't lock, but that's what cinched to the 70s.
Oh, yeah, the music has changed. There's the Pac-Man sound.
There's the Pac-Man sound.
So, do you remember some of the sounds? They've got that that Earth, Wind, and Fire robot vocoder sound. Do you remember what you did to get those?
You know, I don't remember.
Now, there was a voice that said, "Stay cool, Daddy-O." Who was that? You?
Oh yeah. This is back in the day when you had so few call-outs that having a recording session for them was almost silly. So if I could get away with it, if I could do something that I thought, you know, was good, I would just do it. So, far out, Daddy-O, that's me.
That's awesome.
I have maybe 3 or 4 call-outs in it because you know, most of the space that we had, we were using for all the singing call-outs.
Do you remember the other call-outs you made?
I remember Far Out. Okay, we need. Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the 80s now.
Yeah, you'll have to make one more left ramp shot.
All right, can I do it? Oh, almost. I'm just. Even with that center post, it's amazing how many times you still lose that ball down the center.
Well, in a virtual machine, finding the sweet spots for those shots takes a while. You got to do it a fair amount. There's the time metaphor, all the ticky clocks, and that's all FM.
Psychedelic, man.
There, that's me. Psychedelic, man. Psychedelic.
I feel like we need Steve Ritchie saying, "Play better." That's what he would be telling me, because there's a slight delay in the way I've got this recording, because this is playing on a different PC running through a very nice capture card, which has very little latency, but I think somewhere along the line there's a tiny bit, and this is where I'm saying, well, I'm having to adjust my brain a little bit on when to flip. And this is where Steve Ritchie would be saying, that's lame, play better. It's amazing how, yeah, that slight delay, I'm just missing the shot. Right down the middle. It's like those ramps are literally aimed. If you don't get it up there, they're coming right at you. And on the stern tables, I can change it to a 10-ball game, which helps a little bit, but
yeah,
I can't. And that sounded like 50s?
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, that Einstein, there's there are a bunch of hurry-up timers, little modes, they're little hurry-up timers that are set up, and you have to do the flashy shot.
Who was it? Do you remember who was
you got the Star Warp. Okay, you really want to make that shot.
I see it is flashing like crazy. Warp, Star Wars, Star Warp.
Yes, long before there was Twilight Zone, there was Star Warp, which slightly like the Twilight Zone music.
Now, by any chance, do you know why that was all of a sudden happening? I don't know what I did.
Yeah, it's like the skill shot off a plunge. You hit the flashing thing, or
okay,
or it's a random feature. I would have to do my homework on the rules for this. This was
shot. I think I'm at the 80s, am I? 60.
50.
Oh. And then I lose my ball. Trying to trap it, I lose it. Oh wait, I've got two balls in the shooting lane. I think I'm in multi-ball.
You are.
So when you hear this music, you know, what does it make you think when you hear this music you made such a long time ago?
Oh, well, you know, making music for this system, it's great, it's wonderfully interactive, but you have to keep in mind, I've got basically 5 synthesizer voices to make something that sounds like music. And so when it does sound like music, I'm thrilled. Now, does it sound, you know, like great music? Well, you know, with all the constraints, I'm still happy with it. You know, and in this case, I think I'm always going to make it communicate to the player. So I'm looking for a lot of contrast. I want there to be no mistake. You know, you can tell a blind person who was familiar with the game could tell exactly what's happening. That's always my goal. Neato, that's me.
Do you by any chance remember how many months or weeks you had before you had to deliver everything?
These were usually 120-day projects, maybe. Because it's all synthesis, every line, every note, everything has to be crafted. So it took some time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could do about 3 of these a year. That's what I was doing. I only ended up doing like 5 total. But part of that was because I was also working on the sound system. I was doing software.
Now, did you have to work on multiple games at the same time, or could you focus all your energy on one game until it was done?
I could pretty much focus. I was a player coach at that point. I actually had a sound department at IT, and eventually I had 4 people working for me. And Kyle Johnson was the first guy that came in, and I showed him everything I knew, and he was working independently. So the game between this one and Monday Night Football was Kyle's game. I believe it was Playboy. They did a Playboy. So Kyle did Playboy and Kyle did Phantom of the Opera. And I didn't touch those. I mean, that was all. By the time Kyle was doing it, he was all right.
I'm waiting.
That's totally unfair. The timer's still running. Okay, here we go.
I missed it.
Wrong ramp.
Wrong ramp.
This is your shot.
I'm hitting the ramp I've been aiming for the whole time, but it went away.
Okay, you're in the 60s now. This is good.
Do you remember what music was influencing you when you were writing these particular little themes? What you were listening to?
Well, it's funny because in the 60s, I was playing music commercially. In the late 60s, I mean, I was in a rock band when I was in high school, and so we covered about 50 tunes in our rock band, and so I was very familiar with that sort of 60s thing, and I almost was going more for an instrument feel. So I was mimicking a Wurlitzer electric piano, which was a sound that was in a lot of stuff at the time. So other than being sort of a blues thing, it was really more mimicking the way drums and the instrumentation of that decade.
I got a mini jackpot. I did something.
You are doing something.
I'm actually learning at least how to make the shots a little better. So the 70s. So it's 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I don't think I've made it to the 80s yet, have I?
No, you work backwards. You start in the 80s.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so I have not made it to the 50s.
Yeah. You've gotten to the 60s.
And that must have been you.
Yeah, that's me. So this is one of those instances where you can sing along with this tune. time machine, time to be, where you go back in time.
Well, you've talked about that a lot of times you have lyrics to the songs you write, even though there isn't any singing.
Right. Because it's sort of the power of the jingle. It constrains the notes, and I think makes them more memorable.
There it is, Star Warp. All right, this is it, David.
Yep.
I can't backhand it either. Okay. Yay! I did it! I won the game?
Yeah.
So I walk away. I won the game, right?
Yep, you're done.
I wanted to ask you, I hear a lot where they say more pinball, shoot again. What is that? Just saying play more pinball, basically?
No, I think that's when you like extra ball. That's extra ball.
Okay. So this is 60s.
No.
I made it to
this is 50s.
Stop and listen for a minute.
This is like a
trap the ball here and we can listen.
Like an Elvis thing, right?
And that's you on the keys.
Yep.
Tickling the ivories.
The trick in all these things, I mean, there is singing in this game, but generally, where, I'm looking for instrumental tunes that are evocative of a time period.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 50s and 60s, there were always these novelty tunes that were instrumentals, Green Onions. And so I was looking for things like that.
Do you remember what keyboard you were using to play this little tune? What was your hot rod at the time?
Oh, absolutely. This is back in the day. It has not been in 1986 when I started these projects. It had only been about 4 years since there was MIDI, and you could hook something like a piano keyboard up to a computer. Prior to that time, you wanted to get stuff like this into the computer, you'd have to write it down and code it in hex. It was painful.
Right.
And so I was thrilled when MIDI came along, and so the company before this one, I got them to buy me a Yamaha DX7, which was one of the very first digital synthesizers, and uses the same FM synthesis as what's in these. And it was like a dream, except that there was very, very little software that could, read that MIDI input and somehow get it into the computer. I wrote my own initially, and eventually I found a commercial package, but then I had to decode their saved files so that I could put them into my system. But yeah, I was using a DX7, and I did for years.
Do you still have it?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think I sold it eventually.
Was that because you got something better in your
yeah. I mean, everything is moved into the computer. And right. I have the equivalent now of maybe 200 or 300 synthesizers, each one unique and as cool as the DX7. But they all run on a computer, one at a time, So, and I have lots of keyboards, that speak MIDI and talk directly into the computer, but they're just controllers. They make no sound at all because the computer is responsible for simulating. Like you're simulating the pinball machine, right?
Right.
And I simulate all the synthesizers, and I have a beautiful something called FM8. I have a beautiful FM synthesizer, which is probably 2 or 3 times more capable and complicated than the hardware one was back in the day.
You could probably recreate this tune, right? By I think there's software that will listen to this and turn it into MIDI, correct? It will interpret, and then you could plug it through a filter of the old synth and probably get this pretty darn close.
Actually, in a box somewhere in my garage, I have a stack of 5 1/4-inch floppies that actually have the tables for this. I mean, I could do it, but I wouldn't go to that trouble. I mean, this is simple enough. I could get in an hour or so. I could do this. I've actually taken a few of the video game tunes I've done and re-rendered them using the studio, what I have now. It's an interesting exercise.
That's cool.
But there's a certain charm to this.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah, I love it. I like this sound a lot. For many reasons.
Oh, right.
Look at that. I hit the jackpot right off the bat.
Yeah. And she's singing. They're all singing jackpot. And some vague FM attempt at a nasty lead guitar sound. Not really lead guitar, but a lead sound.
Do you think I've done about everything on this game you can do at this point?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
see,
I can pat myself on the back.
There you go.
I not only learned, I had a good coach.
Oh, I don't know. I forgot more of the rules than I ever do. Okay, so hear that modifier that's on top of the tune? That's telling you you're in the exalted state of double scores.
Oh, okay, I was.
So as long as you hear that thing, that's the deal with the things in this time, is I could add elements to the music in time with the music. I could add another player to the music that's already running and have them play something that's significant, like that sort of percussion thing that when you hear it, you know, oh, all my efforts are going to be doubled in score.
Kind of like, did you have a limit of how many layers you could add?
Oh, yeah. Well, the chip was 8 channels. So you could do 8 independent things. And typically I used 5 of them to make music. And that gave me 3 for sound effects. And that was a reasonable division. But sometimes I would steal a sound effects channel to play a sound effect that is, you know, part of the music.
Now, as far as your sound effects, did you make them on your keyboard as well?
No, not really. You know, FM is an amazing synthesis technique, and you make some interesting bass sound with the FM chip, and then you modulate it somehow, and all that crazy changing it over time with sort of algorithmic. I would code a table that, you know, did something funny to the chip, that, you know, like that, wacka 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 wacka. That's an FM sound, but the way it's being modulated, I mean, I use the same approach as whoever coded the sound effects for Pac-Man. But I just, you know, could hear it by ear, and I could figure out, well, that must be what they're doing.
All right, I like it. I can almost visualize you, you know, on the keyboard playing the tune, because there's definitely the keyboard is leading kind of the solo.
Yeah, this game, more than a lot of games, kind of leverages my previous career as a musician who played for live things. I mean, you play a lot of stuff with dancing.
I always liked your story. You said you would play nightly in a bar, and on your breaks you'd play video games, and then they had an arcade machine. But
yeah,
I always think a lot of this music came from just you playing nightly.
Yep.
Live entertainment.
Ooh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
For sure.
Twice.
For sure.
For sure.
Do you know who the female voice was that said the Valley Girl talk? By chance know who that was?
I'm thinking it might have been Elaine, or it could have been Carol. I'm not sure.
Oh, so it could have been Carol, your wife.
Could have been Carol. I was using her as voice talent as early as Data East. She has a credit on IMDb for a one-off game that was made by Data East for an old pinball designer called Baby in the Hole. And Carol did all the voices for Baby in the Hole, and so she has a credit on IMDb for this. That's really her first coin-op audio game credit.
Well, and she sang too. I remember you had her sing "Yo Ho Ho," A Pirate's Life for Me for the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, absolutely. And
she's got a computer. In Tron.
On Secret Service, we play the Carly Simon tune at the end of that. Baby Bait, and Nobody Does It Better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we played just half a verse, and then she comes on at the end and says, "Baby, you're the best."
Well, we're gonna need to do that game on a future show. See if I can.
Well, that one's going to be a copyright thing, because they licensed five tunes for that game.
You're right. I think, isn't it 6 notes? That if it hits 6 notes, that's what kind of.
There's no, there are no notes to James Brown, but you can tell it's James Brown is an infringement. So it's. We licensed it, I performed it, and it's in a pinball machine. I'm just not sure why the copyright holders would be upset about that. I mean, I would understand if you took the recording of it and played it without credit, but I don't know. I would, in some ways, I would be proud if YouTube algorithms actually identified my FM efforts as infringement on they could identify it. Ooh, cool.
Well, it might, maybe we experiment and do a show and kind of see what happens. I can, I'll get the notice. Pretty much every one of my shows I've managed, I don't have any copyright claims on except one, which was a cover. It was from Rayman Legends. They did Black Betty. They redid it for the game, and I thought it would be fine, and it got flagged as it said a theme base, something. So it wasn't even the song. But the music stuff is all over the place on YouTube, as I've learned from my business partner Norb, as well as just my little endeavors into it myself. So now we have a high score groove. Well, it was. I think then it came to, and now this is just.
No, what that was is when you get to the end of your game, if you were close to qualifying the 50s or something, you could put more money in it.
That's right, and continue.
And that was a continue game thing. And then this is the little karaoke thing where you could sing the song. See you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.
There you go.
Well, this was fun, Dave, and thank you very much for doing this. I look forward to doing more. And is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, next time I'm going to have to spend some time going back and see if I can remember how the rules worked, because I haven't played Time Machine in a very long time. I played Laser War because I made some effort to find somebody that I know, collector in the Northwest, chopped a Laser War. He stripped it down, put it back together, put LEDs in it. It was a beautiful, beautiful machine. And I knew of him, and so I went to his place and I set up multiple cameras and I captured some good Laser War stuff, and he played it, and he had the best game he had ever had. Laser War, there are really no modes. You just work your way up through 3 phases till you get to the big jackpot thing, and then there's this insane jackpot phenomenon. And then you've done it. Once you've done that, you've done the game. So, where was I going with that? In any case,
I was just giving us some background music.
Yeah, so I had at least an opportunity to refresh myself on, what am I trying to do here? What are all these shots and all this stuff? I really haven't played a Time Machine in a long time. And I'm not even sure what the side targets do still after watching you for 40 minutes.
Right.
But the two ramps, I mean, this game is about the two ramp shots on the left. From the right flipper, which are the meat and potato shots.
Yes,
Shoot shots to the right side of the play field off the left flipper are typically done less often.
Well, this was fun. I look forward to doing more. Thanks for being the very first guest on my show in this new, exciting layout of pinball and history.
Very impressive technology, Mike. I'm digging it, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You're keeping some of this work. I mean, I did this work so very long ago, and I'm thrilled that it's ended up in collectors' houses and that people play it and they like it. I mean, at the time, we were a very much a second best to Williams and struggling to become a real big pinball company. And I didn't get a whole lot of feedback from the people who were playing it at the time. And it was a thing I was totally involved in for 4 or 5 months, and then I moved on to the next one. So now to be able to think about these and know there's people out there who actually liked it, great. That's great.
It's playing the games, but also going back in time, literally and figuratively, and by playing
it
this.
Is. Yeah, it's remarkable that the virtual recreations are as good as they are. I mean, this is really there's a lot of fidelity here. The only thing, and I think actually you can do this, you can experiment with this. The last story that's interesting is when you get to the 50s on this game, all the sound effects turn into chimes because there was a chime unit in the game. Now, if you go into the operator adjustables, wherever the dip switches are and stuff, because chimes you can't adjust the volume on them, some operators didn't want that to happen. Now, so I recreated all the chime sounds using FM. And that's great because FM, that's meat and potatoes for the FM chip. It does those kind of bell sounds really well. It's really hard to make a snare drum, but bells, it can do that all day. So if you change the dip switches when you go into the 50s, you should get all those EM sounds because they'll come out of the simulation if it's a true simulation.
So I would have to get into the dip switches of this game.
Yeah, you have to enable that on the dip switch.
Okay.
Be interesting to see if that actually works.
You can get into the settings of these games. I don't remember how to on this one. I know how to do it on the Stern games and the not so old Data East games. It's actually pretty easy. You just use the 7, 8, 9, and 0 keys. They're they correspond to the buttons inside the coin door, and it's easy, just like a real pinball machine. You go in and change the settings.
Right. These, because of the alphanumeric displays, I'm not sure how much stuff was actually held in memory and how much was actually adjusted using dip switches. I don't remember.
I'm just curious if I hit I don't think I can. Yeah, I'm hitting the 7, 8, 9, and 0 keys and not happening. Maybe because I'm.
Yeah.
Wait, I think I got in for service. 1-800-KICKERS. Oh, here we go. Yeah, we're kind of in some setup stuff.
Psychedelic, man.
A quick little audio test. Sounds manual, left sine. That's interesting. As in sine wave, right?
That's sine wave, yeah.
So I think I'm in manual. Can I advance display auto? Yeah, so it's display manual.
Okay, so maybe you can advance. Okay.
Switch test. So I'm hitting the 7 key. And that's just cycling me through lamps all. So yeah, there's in all lamps, just like a real game. Lamp returns. And I'm not sure what to...
That's audits. Okay, so these are adjustables.
Yeah, I'm just, by hitting the 7 key, it's just cycling me through test and, let's see, if I hit 7 again, that's the menu. But I can't seem to, it's like one button. Was there more than one button in these games? Do you remember?
Don't know.
Psychedelic, man.
Well, anyway, there's clearly a way to get in there and change the dip switches and try that setting of all chimes. Perhaps someone watching this might try to do that.
All right.
Well, thanks, David, and we will see you on the next show, sooner rather than later, I hope.
Excellent.
All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you later, alligator.